You're listening to Take It EV podcast with Greg and
Bob Murphy.
And Bob's going to tell us all about Scottish Power and his, background in EV charging. And I don't know. I haven't spoken to you yet about this, so this is all new to me as much as to our listeners. So introduce yourself and tell us what we're going to be talking about. What are you doing now, basically?
Yep.
Let's start with that.
That's cool, yeah. So I'm Bob Murphy. I'm a technical executive with Scottish Power, and what I do is support our sales and projects team with delivering smart mobility projects. So that could be anything from home charging through to public charging, fleet charging, all these kind of areas, as well as sort of home mobility or smart home solutions as well.
Okay. And is it just, obviously it's also only in Scotland, right?
No, it's UK-wide.
Okay.
So we everywhere from the Johnny Groats all the way down to Land's End.
And in between.
Yeah.
I heard it's a famous route that everybody does every day.
Oh, yeah. Much easier these days with longer range EV right enough, to be fair.
But your history or your story with EVs started a long time ago, right?
Yeah, it's been away more than a decade now. I've been doing this. So it goes way back to 2011 when I was a mature student. I'd gone back to college to train as a mechanic and got involved with a research program for EVs. And this is around about the time that the kind of renaissance of EVs was starting again. And there was a bit of the college I was at was doing a program to reduce the cost of grey fleet mileage because staff would use their own vehicles for travelling between campuses. And they were looking at a way to reduce that. And the most sensible way to do it was to get an electric vehicle because there was no fuel cost involved and give those to the staff to use those for the journeys because it was a maybe 6 mile distance between the campuses and things like that. So there was a research program kicked off. I got involved with that as an intern, gathering data on it. And it was hugely successful. It was demonstrated very, very quickly that there was money to be saved. Demonstrated that the EVs were viable. You could be using them for that kind of work. And so when Edinburgh College was created by the merger of the college I was at the time and the other local colleges, they decided to go for a fully electric pool car fleet. And we're one of the first pioneering companies to ever do that.
What year was that?
That would be 2012.
Okay, so
Yeah.
early Leafs and Zoes.
It wasn't even that. It was Mitsubishi Ivies.
Oh,
So that the wee jelly bean kind of car with 90 miles on a good day, 20 miles on a bad day, with heating on and stuff. So yeah, it was real trailblazing stuff. But I finished my course and became the fleet manager for Edinburgh College, running that pool car fleet.
what sort of job is it? Like, what does it involve to be a fleet manager? Just out of curiosity, when you have, how many IMEFs did you say?
We had 5 in total.
Okay.
So we had 4 with the campuses, 1 for each campus, and we had a Citroen C0 that was based at another kind of partner organisation in Edinburgh. So we looked after those ones to begin with, and that was where the fleet started off. And this is before there was any public charging infrastructure. There was nowhere you could charge the car publicly. We had to manufacture our own charge points. So we got the students involved in the manufacturing process to build charge points that we could put out in the car park, and it was just a basic outside 3-pin socket. So, it's way before anything like we have nowadays was even a thing. But yeah, it was the fleet manager role in general. It's become a lot more creative and a lot more of a leadership role nowadays. I've got a lot of friends who are fleet managers who look after very, very large fleets, and they directly influence the direction that certain companies are going because of the net zero goals and things like that. So it's not just a case of buying cars in, maintaining cars and then selling cars at the end of that lease or anything like that. There's now a whole range of other things that are brought into it. So it gives people the chance to be creative. It gives people the chance to kind of influence policy decisions and things like that, plus do community benefit and demonstrate that there are savings to be made and environmental impact to be made through the operation of a fleet. And it goes a long way to change people's opinions as well. You put people in an electric vehicle, you give them the chance to drive an electric vehicle, and then their perception changes. And they might go away and buy their own electric vehicle after that if they've had the chance to drive one in a fleet context.
Following all that, what else has happened that led you to join the Scottish Power? I'm sure there's been some cool things going on.
There's been a lot of stuff in the meantime. So the Edinburgh College fleet went from strength to strength. So of course, because we were a kind of leading organisation and we were doing things for the first time, there was a lot of interest in that. We won a number of awards for the fleet and the operation, and we expanded the fleet. We embedded it with a curriculum too, so that all the data we were generating from the electric cars, we could feed that straight back into the courses that we were delivering for students at the time. And we could also tie that in with the solar medal that had been built at the Midlothian campus too. So that allowed us to kind of broaden broadened the kind of scope of how useful the electric vehicles were to us, apart from just using them for saving grey fleet mileage and things like that. So that obviously got a bit of attention. We ended up running a fleet of Nissan Leafs, BMW i3s, ENV 200 vans, and an electric minibus that we were gifted by the Scottish Government, which was great fun. A very early, very, very, very early EV conversion with some limitations, but it was fantastic for going back and forward between campuses and taking some of the classes out back and forward and stuff as well. So it was brilliant. But yeah, during the course of that, I got approached by a colleague that I'd been working with on a couple of other projects who invited me to come and join a company that was selling charge points and delivering infrastructure. And that was a company called eVolt at the time. And then they're now called eVolt again after being Swarco in between. So that set me off on the journey of selling charge points around Scotland and being business development manager for Swarco and travelling all around the country in a wee BMW, selling charge points, building infrastructure, putting charge points in, which was absolutely fantastic. It was great fun doing that. So yeah, did a whole lot of work there, put in a lot of chargers and helped grow that kind of estate in Scotland for the wider public.
Going back to the university and running, fleet of EVs, I have to ask, has there been a lot of pushback from staff or other, decision makers about this? And how did you go about, are there any stories in that? Because those were the days where, I remember driving my Leaf, in 2016 and onwards, and people would be saying to me "Oh, is this it? What's the range? 90 miles? Well, good luck." Basically, was what they would say.
Yeah. There was a bit of pushback from some elements because there was a lot of people that were using their own cars, and of course they were getting mileage expenses from that, and that was 45 pence per mile. So it's a nice little lucrative earner for some people that were doing a lot of travel. But at the time, there wasn't anybody checking to make sure that those folk were insured to be using their vehicles for work program or work related activities. And in many cases, people weren't actually insured to be using their own private vehicle to do work. They were insured to commute to and from a place of work, but they weren't insured to do visits to various places while they were at that place of work and things. So there was a bit of pushback from that until we kind of explained what the position was and things. But one of the things that I did very, very early at the outset was one-to-one training with everybody who was going to be booking an electric vehicle. So that gave me the chance to kind of get them sat down, go through the controls, go through the limitations with early vehicles and stuff like that, make sure that they knew what to expect so that they didn't go out and find themselves stuck on the motorway or something like that because they'd ran out of charge.
Yeah.
And that was great for getting some buy-in and things. And once people learned how to drive it and once they found out how good they were to drive, that kind of changed a lot of opinions as well. Especially when they found out things like, they could have the car preheated for the morning when they went out to drive and they didn't have to scrape the car or anything, and it's like, heated seats and heated steering wheels and things like that.
Yeah, back then it was like a, pro fancy market that only had that, right?
Yeah. And those kind of things help people kind of, embrace it and go for it and move on. And, when we introduced the vans, there was a bit of pushback from the facilities guys because they thought, this van's not going to be any good. It's not going to do what I want it to do. It's not going to carry what we need it to carry and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, we ended up getting them so on board with it, they actually started having competitions with each other to see who got the best range out of it.
Oh, nice.
It totally changed the opinion around altogether. So, but yeah, that was the way to do it. That whole kind of, once people know what they're getting into, and once you've demonstrated what the vehicle can do, you can go back to people and say, yes, I've done this trip from point X to point Y. Here's how I did it. You've got plenty of range left. If you're not going to lose any range by having the radio on, you don't have to switch the lights off when it's dark to save the battery. You just go and drive it like you would normally, and just be a wee bit more efficient. That's it.
Yeah, it's one of those questions that people always ask is like, what about the lights? What about the air conditioning? And I'm like, that takes fraction of the power that required to actually move the thing. So don't worry about it.
yeah, that's it. And one of the things I did was I went out and drove a car till it was totally dead to show people what would happen with it when the traction battery died. And of course, it doesn't just stop dead in the middle of the road. You can coast to the side. You can still have your hazard warning lights on. You can still get somebody to come down and pick you up and take you to a charge point.
Yeah, and it warns you well in advance.
Yeah, and that's it, yeah.
Remind me, what was the range on those vehicles?
So the IMEs would get, realistically, it was about 80 miles on, without the heating or anything being switched on or anything like that. You could have the heated seat on and it was fine. That didn't really impact the range or anything. But the way that the iMeves worked was that they had a kind of resistive heater.
Yeah.
And as soon as you switch that on, you half the range immediately. So, not ideal for long distance trips. And one of my very, very first long distance trips was in an iMev. And this is a bit of a story, this one, because we'd only just got public charge points installed at the college. So this was part of a scheme called Plugged in Places that kind of kicked off around maybe 2013, 2014. So we got charge points installed that were then on a public network that was operated in Scotland at the time by Charge Your Car, CYC. And the installers of the charge points, which ironically was eVolt, the company that I went to work for afterwards, gave us a little RFID card with the charge point. And I thought, great, I've got this RFID card. It's a golden pass. I can go anywhere in the country now and plug my car in and charge it. So there was an event in Aberdeen. I think it was an Energy Savings Trust event, a forum event or something like that. So I thought, right, I'm going to drive from the Midlothian campus in Dalkeith to Aberdeen in a Mitsubishi iMev with its 90-mile range on a very, very good day, right? And I thought, okay, it's going to prove a point that I can do this kind of distance in an electric car. It's not going to cost any money. Off we go. Because charging in Scotland was free at the time, So for a Scotsman, if it's free, that's amazing. Take full advantage of it. And so 5 o'clock in the morning, I had everything was set up, ready to go. I had my little card, shot off north up the A9 and got to Perth Broxton. And for anybody that knows Perth Broxton now, there's loads of chargers at that park and ride, but back in those days there was only one. And my card wouldn't work with it. There was no app or anything like that. There was no contactless back in those days. It was an RFID card or you phoned the contact centre, but the contact centre was shut at 5 o'clock in the morning. And it turned out that I had the wrong card. So I couldn't actually use that charge point to put energy back into the car to allow me to continue the journey.
Oh, wow.
So that was me totally stuck until the local Renault dealership opened at 9 o'clock in the morning and I could lump the car down to them and plug it into a 3-pin socket to give me enough to get to Dundee. And then from Dundee, by that point, the contact centre was open, so I could phone up to get a charge started remotely to then get to Aberdeen later on. So needless to say, I missed the entire conference and it took about 13 hours to go from Dalkeith to Aberdeen on that first trip.
What is the distance?
Probably way less than 200 miles.
Okay.
120 miles or something like that, I think. But yeah, it was the kind of thing that nowadays you don't even think twice about doing. You can do it in one charge. You don't even have to worry about pre-planning or anything. But back in the day, it was like, okay, so learn the hard way. Here's how you don't do it. And here's a bit of a lesson in preparation and having the right card for it. But yeah, I got the right card in Aberdeen. So one of my friends, Alan Simpson from Aberdeen City Council, graciously lent me a CYC card. So the trip home was an absolute doddle. That was no problem at all. And it didn't really put me off doing any kind of long distance stuff, but that was quite an experience on that one.
I mean, yeah, so some people are afraid to actually try things until they fail. And some of us are capable of actually trying and we're not put off by that. It's amazing how that goes. Yeah. But like I say, these days, if somebody has a campus and they're looking to get EVs and they're resistive because the EV only has 200 miles, I think that story should show them that there's nothing to worry about with these sort of cars.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And there's so many companies now that have gone electric for their fleet vehicles. Scottish Power operate a fleet of electric vehicles for pool cars, and we use those for long distance travel, no bother at all. There are some organisations like National Grid, of course, who are embracing electric vehicles for all their kind of needs. And the Royal Mail and BT Openreach, and there's so many companies nowadays that are really, they can see the value in it and they can go for it. And then they know that the cars are going to be enough to do the job. Yeah. So it was really interesting back in those days because everybody was looking at it saying, you can't do that can't be done. It's never going to work. And we just proved that it did without much fuss. When I left Edinburgh College to move to eVolt in Swarco for doing the installation of charge points, that was a whole different situation. So at the time, the public network was growing very, very quickly. There was a lot of funding available for organisations to take on board to install charge points, usually with a 3 to 5 year maintenance plan. And that allows a lot of businesses to put a charge point in to provide charging. But most of that charge was provided on the basis that it was free for people to use. So there was a lot of businesses in Scotland at the time were really, really going for that and really putting stuff in the ground. And eVolt, the company that installed Edinburgh College chargers, were growing very, very quickly. And my friend Stephen, who worked for them approached me to say, would you like to come and join me doing this and making a difference and putting chargers in the ground? And I said, yeah. And then off we went on that adventure. And that was fantastic. It allowed me to go around every corner of Scotland, 34,000 miles in 1 year, driving all around Scotland and seeing every corner of it, all the islands, seeing bits of it that I don't ever want to go back to. So it was fantastic putting all these kind of chargers in the community and on the trunk roads. And there's a huge amount of satisfaction when you rock up to a charger that you installed or you made happen, and you can plug your car into that charger, and people get enjoy the views when they're using it and stuff like that. It's a great part of the job, being able to do that. So that was good for a few years, and then obviously the kind of network in Scotland, ChargePlace Scotland, was the way that things started off with. Rather, I should go back to this, was that the chargers in Scotland are all individually owned by the businesses that put them in. So they're not owned by an overarching CPO, like GridServe, for instance, who own all their chargers. The way that the kind of network in Scotland developed was a bit different. And the funding allowed all these kind of businesses to put charge points in. And then eventually that network, there was an umbrella organisation formed to run that network of chargers, and it was called ChargePlace Scotland. So it was backed by Transport Scotland. And that provided one RFID card for the whole of the country, so that you could go from, again, John O'Groats to Stranraer without having to have multiple different apps and stuff like that. So it was all about bringing it in, a holistic sort of solution. At the time, the charging was still free to use.
Yeah.
It just made it easier, drop the barriers, to adoption, basically. So the ChargePlace Scotland, the operations side of the ChargePlace Scotland came up for tender, and Evo applied for it, Swarco applied for it. So the natural progression from there was to move from being the business development manager responsible for putting the chargers on the ground to being part of the team that then ran that entire network. So we took that over in 2021, not without the challenges, must admit, and worked to try and better that network and improve the service for drivers as tariffs started coming in for the charge points, and as the rules and regulations around them changed and things like that. So yeah, I did that for about a year or two, and then took a bit of time out, took a bit of a break from it, and then joined Scottish Power just about nearly 2 years ago now.
So moving on to Scottish Power, what made you want to jump the ship, and what do you do there? First of all, what's the story? So Scottish Power, I wanted a bit of a change. I wanted the ChargePlace Scotland experience, although it was good, it was very, very stressful. There's not a lot of people realise how much goes into running a charge point network. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that the drivers aren't aware of. And there's a lot of things that are beyond the charge point network operator's control. So a great example of that is if the network goes down for some reason, it's not necessarily the fault of the charge point network operator. It may be some third-party data service that they rely on that's run through a hub in London or something, and that hub's gone down, and then you've lost all the communication with the chargers and you can't do anything. But the charge point network operator gets the blame for that. And frustrated drivers would phone the helpline and have a tirade against some of the people on the phone. And it was overall a very, very stressful sort of area at the time. The handover process from the previous operator was challenging. Rolling out the network and doing all the kind of stuff we had to do was challenging. You suddenly find out there's a lot more data to deal with than you maybe anticipated. And that in and of itself is a bit of a challenge to manage. So I think I just got a bit burned out, and I wanted a bit of a break. So I took 2 months and had a bit of a break, just chilled out, and then got back into it and joined Scottish Power. So again, thankfully through contacts that I've known in the industry for a long period of time, people that I've worked with before who were ex-local authority and stuff like that, and it offered me a chance to join them and become a technical executive with them to support the smart mobility team. Okay. Anything interesting going on with that job? Is it less stressful?
Oh, tremendously less stressful. Yeah. It's Scottish Power are a very forward-thinking company. They've got some very, very clear goals. Now they're part of the wider Iberdrola Group, which is one of the biggest global companies in the world, a Spanish energy company, and they are 100% committed to doing green energy and delivering projects and delivering stuff that furthers the net zero carbon goals. Ironically, they want people to pay less for their energy, and they're doing a lot of projects to try and encourage that. So in the EV realm, we do home charging. So we offer EV tariffs. So you get time use tariffs. So it's cheaper to charge your car overnight when there's less demand on the grid. We've got the public charging that we do. So we fund our own charging points. If you have a patch of land We will come in, we will install the charge points, we'll install the electricity, we'll run the whole system. And we've got that everywhere from Scotland all the way down to through Devon and Cornwall. And we're also doing other smart home solutions like heat pumps, solar panels, home energy battery storage, apps to help run your home. We've got smart metering things as well that will tie in with that. So there's a whole range of projects and things that are available that just make greener living easier.
I mean, I started, when I got my first EV, Nissan Leaf, we lived in a flat and I had nowhere to put a charger.
Mm-hmm.
So I relied on the local Nissan garage to top up on the Rapids, which was sometimes annoying because some of the other people thought they have to charge 100% on the Rapid, and you had to have the conversation with them. But otherwise, the chargers were free at the time in London because the flat was in London, Penge. And I would just leave the car, charging for 4 hours somewhere, then move it somewhere else because you could charge for free at the time, but you were only allowed to stay there for 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can't remember how long Nissan Leaf took to charge fully, but it was more than that, basically. So you had to be, aware of that. But then again, if you charge it for 4 hours, that usually has been enough to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And then you would be, getting closer to the area you're meaning to stay at on your feet, basically.
Yeah.
So it forced you to walk a little bit more.
In fact, some of the research we did with Edinburgh College going back, we proved with the Nissan Leaf that if the car was at 100% charge all the time, it was detrimental to the battery pack. And it would increase the internal resistance of the battery pack and therefore increase wear in the battery pack. And, your best model for usage was to basically charge the car to 100% when you needed it to be 100% and then use it.
Yeah.
And then not plug it back in until it had gone below 80% or even further, to stop the stress on the battery pack. And we used Leaf Spy to kind of interrogate the CAN bus for the car and look at the cell voltages and do all sorts of graphs and stuff like that and feed that data back to the students as well. And then when those vehicles came off the fleet with 30,000 miles on them, they were all in perfect health and went off to their second life with their new owners. And in fact, 2 of them have been on YouTube since then. One of them went to Dr. Ian McDurk.
I was just about to say, I've heard him talking about it.
Yeah, so he bought one of my old fleet cars, and then fantastic Jonathan Porterfield up in Orkney bought a pile of fleet cars as well. And one of his customers was recently on his channel kind of talking about her vehicle, which is one of the cars that belonged to one of the campuses, and she absolutely loves it. And it's still, in a very, very good state of health back and forward. Yeah,
and she treats it very well. She's never accelerating. There's like 5 or 7 little dots on the dashboard. She never exceeds 2, I think.
That's good to know, because when that car was with us, it got a kicking.
well, let's not tell her that.
No, let's keep that one quiet.
But it's good that people, take care of them. Since then, obviously, the technology has moved on quite a lot. Yeah. And the Nissan Leaf battery, chemistry, has been famously unreliable. And they also decided not to put active cooling or heating of the battery, which didn't help.
No, that's definitely been the Achilles heel for the Nissan Leaf, is that lack of an active cooling system. Because those batteries, when not so much in a 24 kilowatt car, but in the higher energy vehicles, the 40 kilowatt plus, it's a very tightly packed battery pack, and the heat build-up gets to the point where it's detrimental to the batteries. And that's where the kind of rapid gate situation came in, where the battery management system was throttling the power of the rapid charger to try and keep the batteries below a certain temperature level. And as we know from our friends at Cleveland EV and James in that, replacing 2 or 3 battery cells in a Nissan Leaf is not an uncommon job, because the cells have got damaged and they've expanded a little bit, and the battery pack suffered as a result. So
last time I spoke to Matt, he said he's got 22 of those queued up to do. So
but nowadays, when you look at all the vehicles, even the cheaper vehicles, they've all got active cooling. So it's a better understanding of battery management, a better understanding of the chemistry. It's just the natural evolution of the manufacturers to guarantee longevity in the battery packs and keep them going. And that's a good thing, because people have learned from mistakes. All the new Nissans have got active cooling in them and stuff like that. So it's really making the product better as we go.
Yeah, I had a 30 kilowatt hour Leaf, so I'm very familiar with the rapid gate and all the jazz.
Yeah.
And it was funny, at some point, 2 years into ownership of my Leaf, they unlocked a little bit more range, and I believe that contributed to the fact that those battery packs then started degrading faster. Because by the time I sold my car, it had almost 60,000 miles on it. And we've lost the bar literally about a month before I sold it, which obviously contributed to the lower value that I could get out of it, which I was very, very disappointed by that. But what can you do? Anything else? Any shout outs you wanna give to Scottish Power or anybody else?
Yeah, just keep an eye out for Bruce the Butterfly on the TV channels and stuff. He's our main marketing campaign just now, talking about being big and green, just like me, and what you can do for smarter, greener living. There's loads of options to help reduce energy bills. There's loads of options to help reduce what you're paying for your EV, particularly with the EV tariff and stuff like that as well, and smart tariffs and smart metering. And yeah, we've got a lot of projects coming up for additional renewable energy because we're 100% renewable energy just now, so we're doing more of that. There's more. Some of the opportunities are opening up for onshore wind now, which is great because we can work with that and we can provide more energy. There's a lot of work being done to upgrade the grid and develop interconnectors and stuff to help with that. And as the industry changes and as the electricity industry as a whole changes and stuff like that, we're probably going to see our energy costs dropping quite significantly, which would be quite nice.
And just to clarify, it's not just for the Scotland, but it's anybody can do it around the entire UK, or is it just the Great Britain?
Yeah, you can have Scottish Power as your energy supplier anywhere in the UK.
Okay.
So we're UK wide. We operate the grid in the southwest of Scotland and the northwest of England. And where's the other one? I think it's down south somewhere, but I can't quite remember because it's not my part of the business. It's kind of two separate businesses, if you like, under the Scottish Power umbrella.
Yeah.
But we are one of the biggest grid operators in the UK just now, thanks to some recent acquisitions. So, but yeah, there's a whole pile of stuff happening. It's not the traditional energy company that people thought it used to be. It's growing, and it's like Bruce the Butterfly. It's kind of come out of this chrysalis and it's growing and it's spreading its wings and stuff like that. And we can do a whole range of stuff. So if there's any doubt, have a look at the website, see what suits, and get in touch.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope this inspires people to get more EVs or talk to people about difficulties in getting EVs, especially in like commercial environments.
Yeah.
And they should check out Scottish Power.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Any questions about EVs or anything like that, we're more than happy to help. And by all means, come down to events like Everything Electric and stuff, because there's so much energy. There's so much information, there's so much intelligence, there's so much experience. Take advantage of that and we'll help demystify the myths and hopefully solve any questions.
All right, thank you very much. And this has been Take It Easy with Greg and Bob.